potentially building a bridge back in case they have to go there. Because the Cavs view Kyrie Irving as a superstar in his prime at 25 years old and under a very affordable contract at around $20 million per year when you consider what guys are getting paid these days in the NBA. So they're not going to trade him for a bag of peanuts, and they'd rather hold on to him as an asset if it comes down to that. So to me, it was kind of a strategic press conference from the Cavs owner Dan Gilbert and the new GM Kobe Altman.
All right, Dave, we appreciate the update. Dave McMenamin with the latest from Cleveland. Brian Windhorst with us here in the studio, so let's continue the conversation, Brian. Altman's take is, hey, iceberg, what iceberg? This ship is safely on course. How close to reality is that?
Not really. I mean, obviously, they're under distress right now, but they can't present that front. This was a very well-rehearsed press conference. I thought the Cavs did a good job at least keeping the message out there that they don't necessarily have to trade Kyrie Irving. You want to project that not only to your fans to try to calm the situation, but also to other teams, because otherwise you're going to lose leverage in the situation. If people realize that you've got a fire sale and you've got to do something because there's a big problem, then you're going to get lesser offers. And you can tell if you watch the press conference today, Dan Gilbert had note cards, they had talking points. I give them credit, Stan, for actually coming out and having a press conference in this situation. Right. They could have just announced the new general manager, put out a press release, and moved on. It wasn't that revealing, but I give them credit for at least coming out and doing something like this.
All right, so now from a priority standpoint, is there more of a priority on getting LeBron James and Kyrie Irving to work things out, or is there more a priority on finding a deal for Kyrie Irving?
They are having trade talks involving Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
Now, whether they're going to be aggressive in it or they're going to let things play out, we'll have to see. But I think they realize it's more likely than not that they're going to have to trade him. But they have got to leave all doors open because there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, Kyrie could put out the word that he is not going to sign with any team that is not on his list. Okay. And if that happens, Stan, we may not see a trade before training camp. All right. And that's a reality that they don't want to be in, but that very well could be there, which is why Dan Gilbert said today that they could see Kyrie Irving at training camp. They say he's under contract. The thing that you don't want to do is create a false timeline. In all honesty, the Cavs don't have to trade Kyrie Irving until the trade deadline, which is February 8th. Okay. They don't want it to roll out like that long. They don't want this to be a distraction that long. But they can't sit there and say we have to do something and then all of a sudden put a deadline on themselves that they don't need. This is what life is like in Cleveland. And they can project that there's stability and say that, you know, we can only play the hand we're dealt. Right. But after a while, you realize that in Cleveland, stuff happens.
Yeah. He did add Derrick Rose, though, so I have to give him credit for that.
That's true. All right. I'll give him credit for that.
All right, and when stuff happens, Brian Windhorst is always here to talk about it from Cleveland.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Coast. I'm Carrie Champion. It is morning here, David, in Los Angeles. What time is it there in Bristol, Connecticut?
It's just past afternoon. It's afternoon. Okay. It's solidly afternoon. Here we go.
It's solidly afternoon. David, we got a great show today. We're talking the sports, as people love us to do. But there's sports and more. Do you know what the more is, David?
It's the talking, I believe, right? There's more talking going on?
There is more talking going on.
We got the news Friday, right? That Kyrie wanted this trade. Saturday, Stephen A. telling us that some in Kyrie's camp felt LeBron was responsible for that news getting out. They went back and forth as Stephen A. this morning on First Take came off his vacation to stand by his story.
I know what I know. I stand by what I said wholeheartedly, 1,000%, because I know who called me and who said it. The reality is that he is ticked off because he believes that his name should not have been a part of the equation. Now, Kyrie Irving has a different agenda. Kyrie Irving is tired of being seen as second fiddle to LeBron. LeBron James is caught up in his feelings because LeBron James is addicted to trying to control a narrative, and he doesn't get to control that.
Oh, my. Okay, so let's walk it back.
Was he vacationing in Bristol that he came off his vacation? Who vacations in Bristol?
I hope he wasn't. You think?
That's just what David said.
Oh, my goodness.
That's what he said.
Okay, well, Stephen A., were you vacationing in Bristol? That's not a good vacation. Meanwhile, Brian Windhorst, and let's walk this all the way back, who first reported the story when it very first came out. There's this breaking news. Kyrie wants out of Cleveland. You join us now. So you break the story, you get this information, and what was the reaction? Because I felt like it was a slow build. Because at first I was like, did I read this right? Did Brian just say this? What was the reaction?
Yeah, when the tweet was on my screen, I knew when I hit send my life was going to be over for the next period of days. I was like, maybe I should just not send it and let somebody else deal with this. But I did hit it. So, you know, we've seen this over the years, Carrie, where a star asks for a trade, and we begin the trade star protocol.
Right.
And maybe it lasts 6 months, maybe it lasts 6 days. Let's hope for 6 days.
Right.
But it could last a longer time than that. And we're going to have to wait to hear from a couple of people. Number one, the Cavs have a press conference today. Which is going to be a very important moment for them. And at some point, whether it's going to be sometime this summer or sometime after he's traded, or if he's reporting to training camp with the Cavs, Kyrie is going to have to give his side. And I think while we can report on what people are telling us, and certainly I do that as best I can, we're going to have to wait to hear from the primary forces here. But this is unusual. This is unlike any other star trade in recent memory, because normally there's two parties involved. There's the team, and then there's the player. In this case, we have three parties involved, because we have Kyrie, we have LeBron, and then we have the Cavs. And the dynamics are different between all three. We have a trade triangle, and it's unlike anything I've ever covered before, because LeBron has so much influence on the Cavs franchise, and because he's going to be a free agent in a year. So there's dynamics here that we've never seen before, and it's going to be difficult figuring them out, and that's why what the Cavs say today at their press conference is going to be very important.
You mentioned the press conference, 4 p.m. today. That is to introduce the new GM, Kobe Altman. That, by far, I think, is the last news of the day in terms of the storyline. Congratulations on the job, by the way.
Which is unfair to him, by the way.
Yeah.
It really stinks.
It's on the nature of the business.
That he works his whole career to get to this point, and then he's going to have. But you're right. There's nothing that can be done. The reality is
the nature of the business, and it also means he has his job. He has a big job. He has a huge job ahead of him if he's supposed to get this locker room back in order. So let me talk to you just about that, and I want to focus on that. Do you believe this entire situation, and by that I mean Kyrie allegedly, well, he does. He wants out. LeBron allegedly not happy with him for saying that to the media. Is this entire situation out of control?
Yes and no. Obviously, if it was Kyrie's choice, it would never have become public, so he didn't have to live in a shell, which he's probably going to have to do now.
Well, hold on. What do you mean? If it was Kyrie's choice, he wouldn't want what?
He wouldn't want it to be known publicly.
That he wants to leave?
No,
Cleveland?
he would have rather just had the trade happen. He wouldn't have wanted to known. The Cavs would have preferred for this not to get public because it changes their leverage position. But in the NBA, when you start having trade talks, and not only that, when teammates start to find out in 2017, it ain't staying quiet. It's just not. If they would prefer, of course they would have preferred it to be quiet. But that's just not reality in 2017.
It's not. And now that it's out, I don't think it benefits anyone. We're hearing that Stephen A. said that his sources are telling him, you know, Kyrie thinks LeBron leaked it and whatever. But why? How does this benefit Kyrie?
Let me just say something about the alleged leak. A story this big.
Yeah.
Okay? I know I put it out. I would never be able to put out a story like this with one source. Of course I had to have, in this case, 4 sources. I spent hours working on that story. The entire 12 hours leading up to its release, talking to Kyrie's side, talking to the Cavs, talking to LeBron's side, talking to other players. If I put this story out with one source that would leak something to me, I would position myself to be in deep, deep trouble. Of course this story has to have multiple... It's not about one leak. It's not about somebody whispering in my ear. This is not the Cavs signing a guy to a 10-day contract. This is a humongous story. This was not one leak. Let me just say that, number one. But at the end of the day, it's out. It's out now.
Yeah.
And now everybody has to deal with it. And Kyrie and LeBron, like what the source told Stephen A. about, you know, he would kick his butt or whatever, they are kicking each other's butt. It's just happening in social media. It doesn't happen in the back alley anymore. Are you guys paying attention to what's happening in social media? Do you see what's going on, the messages that they're sending to everybody? That's one of the reasons why the NBA is great. That's one of the reasons why young generation love the NBA, because the trash talk that Kyrie and LeBron are having, we can all see it.
Oh, yeah. Did you see, speaking of, did you see his latest snap being Kyrie's?
Of course I did.
I'm coming home.
He is coming home.
How are we supposed to take that?
There
are various meanings to that. Yeah, I'm coming home from China.
He's going to fly from China back to the U.S.
But
of course he's taking a shot at LeBron. Of course he is with that. You know, when LeBron, that was like his theme song when he came back to Cleveland. On the cover of Sports Illustrated, what did it say? I'm coming home. Of course it's a shot at LeBron. Of course everybody noticed that Kyrie stopped following LeBron on Instagram. Now, we can make fun of this stuff and say it's just laughable, but These are messages that are being sent. They don't have to meet each other in a private session and, threaten to kick each other's butt. They're doing it right in front of our own faces.
Okay, so let's stay right there. Can they coexist? I talked to several people who said now that it's gotten to this level where we really are, as you say, having it out in social media, letting other people know how we feel about one another, how do they even exist together in the coming season?
That's why I'm saying it's not just about Cavs and Kyrie. It's a triangle. It's Cavs, LeBron, and Kyrie. Now, if there was a different situation, let's say Chauncey Billups had been named the president or David Griffin was still in the chair. When Kyrie came to the Cavs 2.5 weeks ago and said to them, I want to be traded, I don't want to be playing with LeBron anymore, maybe at that time he could have gotten them together and said, you know what, let's just get this together and clear this air and let's try to move on. But unfortunately, the Cavs were in a bad position, and that's where the fact that they've had a front office chaos costs them. Because it's possible that if Red Auerbach was running this team that Kyrie would still want out, that it couldn't be saved. But the question we'll never know. We'll never know whether or not if they had had a strong general manager in place. They had no general manager in place. No offense to Kobe Altman. He was interim. He can't call those people in. When Kyrie and his agent had the meeting to announce that they wanted to be traded, Kobe wasn't even in the meeting. It was with Dan Gilbert. You ideally want a general manager there to keep that together. Sure. So everybody, in my mind, has dirt on their hands here. The way Kyrie handled this timing-wise, the way LeBron has handled this, with social media and pushing back on it and making it clear the way he's doing it. And then the Cavs for not having an environment that could handle this situation more professionally. So you're getting back to say, could it be saved? Of course it could be saved, but the environment now has deteriorated and has made it harder because of those factors that I mentioned.
What a disaster. All right, so today, 4 o'clock, Kobe Altman will be introduced as the new GM. Perhaps they can get along. We shall see. In your professional opinion, and I have to get back to Bristol, do you think, in fact, that they will be able to trade Kyrie, or will he be on their
I think
team?
they will, but it would be interesting today if they come out and threaten not to trade him. Because Kyrie has leverage here that he can push back. The way the Cavs create leverage back with Kyrie would be to say, we may not trade you.
All right, that's what Brian Windhorst giving us the latest. So much to dissect here. David, back to you.
Okay, Carrie, last month a man was charged with stealing $40 of food and drink from a convenience store in Virginia. That man identified himself as Lucky Whitehead, even provided Whitehead's social security number. When the Dallas Cowboys got wind of the arrest, they released Whitehead Monday. Yesterday, Prince William County Police revealed that it was not Whitehead in that convenience store. In fact, flight records showed Whitehead was not even in Virginia at the time of the arrest. The now former Cowboys wide receiver spoke about the ordeal on Good Morning America today.
I just get thrown to the wolves, and like I said, I was blindsided. My back was against the wall. We, as an organization, we preach all these mantras, and they kind of went away from that.
Lucky Whitehead certainly not happy with his treatment. Let's bring in Stefano Fassaro, who's with the Cowboys in Oxnard. Stefano, Jerry Jones got somewhat emotional defending his decision to the media to release Lucky Whitehead. Describe what the scene was like at camp yesterday.
Well, David, it was a pretty chaotic scene altogether as he decided to hold court in the middle of the field just after practice with about 40 media members rushing to him to see what he had to say. All the while, about 2,700 fans were screaming at the top of their lungs, asking players for autographs. And as far as what he had to say to the media, obviously not very thrilled with the way the media had been reporting the team's handling of the Lucky Whitehead situation.
If y'all have done one thing in my time, and to criticize me, is how I will back up a player to a fault. You've done it. You've done it for years for that. I will back them up to a fault so that when we do make a decision around here that in best interest of the team to move on, there's one thing you can forget about, and that is whether you're being fair or whether you've given it consideration of what it means to the individual. That doesn't happen around here.
Well, as you heard, his version of how things went down is very very different of the Lucky Whitehead of what you just heard from Lucky Whitehead just a few moments ago. Now, as far as players are concerned, the current Cowboys players, I spoke to team captain Jason Witten as he came off the field yesterday from practice, and although he says he feels bad for the Lucky Whitehead and the situation that he's in, he does understand that they need a certain type of player to build a winner on the field, and they can only worry about the guys that are here in Oxnard because that's their only goal, to win on the field.
Still a little bit of a controversy to get things started at Cowboys camp. Stefano Fassaro with the very latest from Oxnard, joined now by our NFL insider, Adam Schefter. First, what's next for Lucky Whitehead here, who seems to be wronged in this situation?
Well, David, first of all, the Cowboys made the decision on a body of work, not just this one single decision. So
yes, but if this arrest
I think there was other things. Correct. But now he goes on waivers. Look, the truth of the matter is it was going to be difficult for him to stay on the Cowboys roster. So this may turn out to be a blessing for him because he will go on waivers. There's a real chance that a team will claim him later this afternoon. If a team claims him, it wants him, and it will give him a chance to win a roster spot, which he probably wasn't going to win in Dallas anyway. So, again, it could turn out to be a blessing for Lucky Whitehead. Dallas, it was easy for the Cowboys to use him as a scapegoat here because he was going to have a tough time making the roster because they drafted a return man in April because he had some other incidents that they were concerned about. So they made the decision, listen, we're going to release him right now. Lucky Whitehead told Jason Garrett, this wasn't me. I didn't do this. It was very apparent to anybody who made some calls on Monday night that it wasn't going to be him. He was cleared with the mistaken identity by the police department yesterday. Now he's released. He's on waivers, and other teams have the chance to put in a claim for him.
Okay, yeah, the Cowboys got Ryan Switzer, as you mentioned, in the draft, so the sort of similar skill set there is going to be tough for Whitehead to make that roster. Meanwhile, there's the Ezekiel Elliott investigation hanging over Oxnard as well. What's the very latest on that?
I think you have to read between the lines here because nobody's going to come out and say, oh, this is the week we're going to make an Ezekiel Elliott announcement. That's not going to happen. But think about it this way. The Cowboys and Cardinals open the preseason next week in the Hall of Fame game. Jerry Jones is being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's going to be talking up a storm. The NFL and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys don't want him having his press conferences for his Hall of Fame induction turning into Ezekiel Elliott questioning. So it's hard to imagine that the league is going to say something next week, which would leave this week or the week after the Hall of Fame. But they're getting closer to a decision, the league is, on whether or not to discipline Elliott. And again, I would think that we're on the clock this week, and if it doesn't come this week, I think the decision is tabled till the week after the Hall of Fame game.
Solid deductive reasoning there, breaking it down.
Logical, right, David?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense.
Thank you. We try to make some sense.
Yes, you do. The Raiders dealing with their own controversy. Garyon Conley, their first-round pick. Of course, he's under investigation for an alleged rape. What are you hearing about that situation?
The Raiders are confident that eventually he will be cleared. But the fact of the matter is, the police department has not said anything about whether any charges will be brought against him. He remains unsigned. They have not signed him and probably won't sign him until we hear the results of this situation. The Raiders are supposed to go to camp later this week. So I think everybody would like a decision sooner rather than later. It's been going on for a while now, since the story broke the week of the draft, the day before the draft, if my memory serves me correct. And so these are very serious charges. The Raiders are optimistic that he and his name will be cleared. And if that's the case, then they got themselves a steal where they picked him. If it goes the other way, then it becomes a little interesting here and very disappointing for that young man.
Okay, another storyline to follow as we get ready for training camps breaking out around the NFL. Adam Schefter, our NFL insider, with us today on Coast to Coast.